Hello, this is Brian again. Welcome to the next part of Peak 6629. I'm past, I believe I'm past the rest of the scrambling part. Now I'm just walking up the gentle slope now through a field of yerba santa. Managed to get around that scramble, which wasn't that bad. Just a couple little tricky spots. And now head up towards that, which will be, I think that's 6629 if I remember correctly. And also got a little provisional bump over here called .6617. There are a lot of small bumps along this ridge. Yeah, got a little bump over here, and we got that, which I believe should be the actual high point. Start heading over here to this bump. Yeah, should be bump 6617. Starting to get a much better perspective on what I was curious about: the fire damage. So when we get up here, might be able to get a even better perspective of the area. It's nice. It's a steep little jaunt to get up here. This isn't bad here though. Steep, but it's a short, very short walk. So gotta watch out for bulldog. Most of it's dead. Excuse me, I'm a little tired. Most of it's dead like this, but I still recommend avoiding it. Not that far from where I was scrambling up the rocks, there were still some patches of live poodle dog bush too. After fire, it receives itself very heavily, but it persists for quite a while. I mean, the station fire was, excuse me, 10.5 years ago. Woke up pretty early this morning. Woke up around 4:30. Well, I used to go to work at 6, but now I go to work at 4 in the morning every day now. So figured, I should be able to get up early for these hikes then too. I guess since I've been really working really hard lately and trying to improve myself, get faster and get better at what I do, work in grocery retail. So, you know, I get no complaints about my work ethic and everything, but you know, still try to find ways to make things easier for myself, streamline what I do. And try to do the best I can. Alright, so this should be bump 6617. Been up to this one before too. It's not really a peak per se. Well, it's a miniature high point. But really can't see much of Winston Ridge. Well, I actually saw more of Winston Ridge coming up, which is over there. I think that little summit in the foreground, not that pointy one way in the back, but the one in the foreground, I think is peak 6850. It's a small bump along Winston Ridge. The high point of Winston Ridge is barely 7,000 feet, like 7,003 feet, which is over there. Yeah, Winston Ridge got completely torched. Pleasant View Ridge peak 7983. It's peak 7,983. That got completely torched. Will Thrall Peak, which is hidden behind the Jeffrey Pine there, that got completely torched, just like I feared. I was definitely worried about that. And I was right to be worried, because it did. It looks like, yeah, it definitely hit one of those subsidiary peaks of the Will Thrall Pleasant View Summit area. And I see some very interesting cones here. These look like they have some intermediacy between Jeffrey and Coulter. Just look at the huge triangular shape cone scale tips. So we might have a Coulter Jeffrey hybrid over here somewhere. Possibly. Not saying 100% for sure, but the triangular tips on that cone are much larger than your typical cone scales of Jeffrey pines. Here's another interesting cone. That's not full-blown Coulter pine. See, Coulter pines don't have little prickles. See, these have little prickles on the end of them. So Coulter pines just have huge claws. These actually have prickles. And you can also see the lighter tannish color, which is which indicates Coulter pine. So some of these might actually be Coulter Jeffrey hybrids. I make it a point of every time I see hybrids on my hikes, got to make sure I point them out. Well, try to figure out which of these trees has those type of cones, or which of these trees have those type of cones. Could be multiples. I've seen Coulter Jeffrey hybrids in the San Bernardino Mountains, and look at the little upper right corner of the screen. You'll see the little eye. Click on that, and there should be a video called "Apparent Jeffrey-Coulter Hybrids." It's the San Bernardino National Forest hike I did back in 2019. But yeah, the cone's got the tan scale, the tan colored scales indicative of Coulter pines. So their cone scales are tan, but instead of a full-blown claw, they have a very sharp prickle at the end of their cone scale. So the prickle belongs to the Jeffrey parent, the tan color belongs to the Coulter pine parent. So some of these trees might actually be hybrids. I'm trying to see if I can figure out which one or ones are them. Looks like the cones fell out of pretty much all these trees here, so I'm also watching out I don't step in the poodle dog bush. This one's probably a regular Jeffrey pine, but it's one of these trees up here. Definitely appears to be a hybrid between Jeffrey and Coulter. I want to see if I can pinpoint the tree. The one I saw, this was April 27, 2019. Again, check for that video. I saw the cones in the tree. I saw the tree itself, and it was amidst Coulter and Jeffrey pines. I'm trying to figure out which one of these trees has those kind of cones. I suspect this one could be it right here. Again, I don't even see any cones in the trees. Usually you see cones in the trees. And on that video, I actually saw the cones clearly in the trees. And well, in the tree, I think it was one. I saw at least one tree. I knew for a fact was the tree in question. But I'm not seeing cones in any of these trees. No leftover cones. Look like they all fell. Maybe the Santa Ana winds that we had constantly howling these last couple months have knocked them all down, but that's very interesting. So one of these is a Coulter Jeffrey hybrid. At least one of these has to be. This tree still has cones in it. Let me go investigate this one. No, this one's got regular Jeffrey cones in it. All these orangish brown ones are Jeffrey cones. This one actually, this old cone right here actually has the claws at the end of it. And I don't see any regular Coulter pines. So some of the cones I saw in the San Bernardino mountains on that one hike had some cones with some prickle, with a prickle, and I saw some cone scales with a slight claw. Not those really big, long, gnarly claws that the Coulters have, but you could definitely tell there was a claw forming there. And there were cones of all different forms of intermediacy along the ground. And I could see the tree from which those cones came, or at least one of the trees, clearly tell that those type of cones were in the tree itself. So that's very interesting. I probably noticed that the last time I was here. I don't know if I still have any of that video, but now that I'm doing it now, I just don't know if it's worth maybe just looking at it for posterity. Maybe. But I'm not that far from 6629. These down here, these all look like Jeffrey cones. Kind of a medium reddish brown with the same color on the upper side and the lower side, which is indicative of Jeffrey. I know I've done spotlights on Jeffrey pines and ponderosa pines, but I want to take some time and do an update, maybe and find a place where both of them live and do a spotlight on both of them together, because I've been doing a lot of research and reading about Jeffrey and ponderosa pines. They can actually be much more similar than you think. Be surprised that even experienced botanists sometimes have trouble. I've had trouble, and I thought, okay, prickly ponderosa and gentle Jeffrey, vanilla in the bark, Jeffrey, no vanilla, it's got to be a ponderosa. Well, it doesn't always work out to be that way. I've been reading on this botanist site. His name is Tom Chester, pretty well-known botanist here in Southern California, on tchester.org. Been reading that, rereading it, and rereading it. Just thinking, hey, there are trees, there are Jeffrey pines with prickles that will hurt your hand, according to him, and ponderosas that feel gentle in your hand. So prickly ponderosa and gentle Jeffrey, not always gonna get you your diagnosis. I'm not gonna go super deep into it now, But he also noted that even the Pacific ponderosas can have a sweet vanilla smell coming from their bark. And sometimes Jeffreys have more of a butterscotch, maybe even slightly fruity sweet smell. I know I've already known from doing a lot of reading that the ponderosa pines in the Rocky Mountains and in Arizona have been known to exude a vanilla smell. And you don't have to spend time thinking whether it's a ponderosa or Jeffrey, because Jeffrey pine doesn't grow in Arizona. Probably would do well, because those ponderosas are more drought tolerant than ours, I believe. But even our ponderosas have some drought tolerance as well. They have to live out here. Okay, well, coming up here, peak 6629. There's the Waterman E7 benchmark. So I know this is 6629. So here it is, the peak. Well, actually, that was a reference mark. I'm tripping. This is the actual triangulation benchmark. So here I am, peak 6629. It's been a couple of years since I've been up here. But yeah, I'm gonna do some research, reread his channel or his website. I'm going to try to find where I can go find the two growing together. Apparently Islip Saddle, which is closed right now and probably burnt, is an area he pointed out for them growing together, but I have a feeling that area is probably completely burnt to smithereens, unfortunately. So here it is, beautiful peak 6629. Remember last time I went along this ridge, went to visit some of these, which I might do that again today. Maybe just do that for a little while. But I think I'm going to open up a water. I need to drink something. Well, I'll see you on the next clip. We'll see where I end up.